7 o'clock on a Sunday night. You know what that means. It's Topical starts right now. Good evening to you, South Africa, those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical. Our digital audience with us tonight, joining us from the University of Pretoria, UJ, UKZN, and Nelson Mandela University. Good to have them on the program. Amongst them, our guests. They will weigh in terms of some of the burning questions they have for our guests in a short while. The ANC's 113th anniversary celebrations, the first for the party since the May 2024 National and Provincial Elections. It also went into these celebrations under intense pressure. Why? The alliance partner, the South African Communist Party, of the government of national unity with the Democratic Alliance and the opposition parties. Now, history. The ANC was founded in 1912, so profound and rich history, no doubt. And for many years, the occasion of this anniversary was marked by the release by the National Executive Committee of a major statement for the forthcoming year. So, marching orders, so to speak. You heard what was delivered by the party president, Cyril Ramaphosa. What did you think? What does the immediate future hold for the ANC? We saw a sense of nostalgia in the build-up to yesterday's event, the visit to Robben Island, paying respects to their stalwarts. Will looking to the past help improve the future? Which brings us to the umbrella question of the week. And we're asking you, as the ANC marks its 113th anniversary, the party has declared this year to be a decisive and visible year of action to revitalize the party. Now, here's the question. In your opinion, do you think that the party can regain its former glory? Let us know at SABC News_TV. Let's walk and talk, get you some context. Now, from what you've heard and seen over the past week or so, are you convinced that the ANC can get back the voters that it lost, or somebody did not show up to vote for it? We will explore this in greater detail. Let us know your thoughts, though, at SABC News_TV. Perspective coming up. All right, I want to get a sense of what you are thinking regarding the question of the week. We took to the various streets of Johannesburg to canvass your views, your perspectives on the ANC's 113th anniversary celebrations and the marching orders given by the party president, Cyril Ramaphosa. This is what he had to say.
Current president, our president Ramaphosa, is really trying very, very hard to bring it back down to the basics. Over the past 30 years, there's been ups and downs, but I believe firmly that they're really trying very hard to serve the people.
I don't think the ANC still resonates with the people of South Africa. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we can see when it's time for like elections and stuff, a lot of young people don't vote. And I think that speaks volume on how young people don't feel like they can relate to the missions or whatever the ANC is doing.
I think they lost that sort of connection with the people a very long time ago, and for me the proof is in the pudding. I think human beings, we speak on results and we are results based.
Can't be a party promising all these benefits that you're not delivering, so it's really important to consider the people's needs first instead of actually trying to bolster enough numbers to just win votes and that's it.
They've delved a lot into corruption and stuff, and I do think it might be time for change.
They lost a lot of votes during the previous elections, so they have to work really strong to reclaim their former glory, because most of the people they left them, so they have to pull up their socks.
I don't think there should be a celebration because a lot of people are struggling and they're going through a lot.
All right, we appreciate your thoughts on this matter. I want to tee up the discussion for you, what we know and why it matters. SABC News senior political journalist Ntebo Mokobo joins me now live. So thank you very much indeed for your time. Always a pleasure to have you on the program. We need some context. We need an understanding This January 8th statement delivered yesterday, how does it compare in terms of significance to the past?
Well, good evening, Blaine, and good evening to the viewers at home. It's very significant, this January 8th statement, as you correctly pointed out. This is the January 8th statement that comes after the May 29 elections, where the ANC dipped to not just below 50%, but to around 40%. The formation of the GNU that was followed. And of course, the ANC had a very serious back foot when it comes to its, I think, legitimacy in the public eye.
Right.
Because it's all about getting vote when you go to elections. So it's very significant.
Right.
And it's significant in the sense that at some point, the ANC came and decided that things are not well in the ANC. And they felt that there has to be a renewal and a serious renewal.
Let's talk about that renewal. The party president, Cyril Ramaphosa, saying the party either renews or it perishes. What was the plan in order to get the renewal undergoing?
You see, it's simple as the ANC must renew or it will die. And it can only renew when it goes back to its tradition, the tradition of being a servant of the people. If you look at the ANC, at some point, they used to boast and say the ANC is the leader of society. You can't be a leader of society when you wake up in the morning at 4 o'clock, people have blockaded the roads, are protesting. If you're a leader of society, you should be rooted within communities, knowing what bothers those communities. But this time around, you see the ANC really distant from the people. And that's where the problem is. If you were to renew the ANC, you need to make sure that it goes back to the people that it used to be, the leader of society. And secondly, you see, there was a diagnostic report by then Secretary General Gwede Mantashe at some point. He said the ANC is aloof, the ANC is arrogant, the ANC is distant. They even talk about a social distance between the motive forces and the leadership. And that's exactly where the ANC is today. And if you were to correct that, then you will be talking about serious renewal of the ANC.
Right. So one of the issues is visibility of ANC leadership on the ground. As you said, you gave the example of protests. The ANC membership over the years. The party president, again yesterday, saying that the branches, one of the reasons that they lost the elections, are the branches have become weak. Talk to us about the ANC membership currently and the caliber. What are people saying? That the current caliber, can it flip the page, so to speak?
If you look at the hemorrhage since 2021, it's around 178,000. The ANC membership declined by 178,000 from 2021 to 2023. And if you look at the provinces where the ANC experienced the decline, it was KZN at 42,000, and followed by the Eastern Cape. And the 42,000 in KZN, it was before the formation of MK. Things could be worse now because now the MK was formed. And the ANC in the Eastern Cape, 40,000. That's the home of the ANC. So it says a lot about the branches, that the branches have failed to become an attraction to new members. And they failed even to adapt with the new realities. The new realities is that a modern day electorate, it's a young person, very dynamic. These are young people that really needs to be excited by something. Are those branches, are those leaders in those branches really appealing to these young people? No. That's why I always say it will take a lot, really, for the ANC to attract these members, because you need a lot of work.
So, but what is it? South Africa is, a large part of South Africa is a youth population, right? A large chunk of it. Does the current policies talk to the youth? Or is it the visibility of these leaders? What is it that can attract the youth?
It goes back again to what Mantashe said at some point, that the ANC has become aloof and arrogant. So these young people, sometimes they don't see themselves as part of the ANC. That's why I'm saying the branches and the branch leadership, and even the regional leadership, the provincial leadership, they're not appealing really to young people. But there are those who are really becoming members. But at some point, some people see the ANC as an organization that is very distant to us. It doesn't talk. The policies are there, although they are not being implemented accordingly.
We got a slide with regards to the ANC's performance over the electoral share over the years in the general elections. And you can really see a decline starting from 2004. Does that talk to what you were just mentioning in terms of one of the reasons being, as you said, Mantashe, saying that ANC is aloof and arrogant?
Indeed. If you look at the decline started during the Thabo Mbeki era. Nelson Mandela, he got around 12 million, over 12 million voters, but it started declining. It only picked up when Zuma came in, I think, in 2009, but again, it started to decline. This tells you that there's something wrong that the ANC has done, and it's simple. See, sometimes you fail to diagnose. You can diagnose the problem, but you refuse to come up with a solution to the problem. It was a good diagnostic, right diagnostic. Mantashe diagnosed it correctly, that the ANC has become arrogant, but they should have worked on that. It was around 2007 up until 2012 when they celebrating their 100th anniversary. From 2012, what has the ANC done in terms of redressing that problem of being aloof, being arrogant, seen as an organization of others, and us and them? They didn't do that, and they're paying for the failure to do that.
Well, one of the reasons that, I think it was Fikile Mbalula said that they went to the Western Cape and Khayelitsha in particular, was to reconnect with people, rekindle this connection. Talk to us about what are people saying. Did the strategy of going to the Western Cape work?
You see, the strategy of going to the Western Cape, it might have worked, but you must understand those people who filled up those stadiums are ANC members. They are not ordinary South Africans. They are not people who only happen to vote for the ANC. Those are diehards of the ANC. So they would have been there. You ask them, they will say all sorts of things about the ANC. But if you go to the ground, if you go down on the ground and engage people, then you will hear a different story. Absolutely. That's where the problem is. The ANC needs not to look inward, to be inward looking. They need to go out and really understand what people are saying on the ground. You see, when you go on the ground, for instance, when it comes to the registration of spaza shop, you listen to people, some of them are saying, in fact, our government, it's more inclined to foreign nationals and foreign spaza shop owners, to the annoyance of South Africans. And that on its own then should ring the ANC that you need to be an organization that is all about its own people. Then you can think of others. Be the organization of these people, as opposed, you see, when perceptions get repeated over and over again, then they become a reality. People see this organization as this organization that is more biased to other people as opposed to their own.
And as we know, perception and optics in politics is material. Thank you, sir. Ntebo Mkobo, the better mind, as always. It talks to our next point. Kani, put up our augmented reality graphic. I'm going to show you this something called stadiumology, right? The ANC, of course, held in various stadiums, various big stadiums as well, the January 8th statement. This time around, it went to a 2,000-seater stadium. But as we know, that this stadium has a capacity to accommodate 22,000. So you saw turnout yesterday. Does that really matter in the greater scheme of things? What do you think? What about the explanation of reconnecting with people, rekindling their connection with the people who voted for them? Let us know if this makes a difference in the greater scheme of things. At SABC_TV is where we're at. Quick break. More next. Welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. Let's remind you about the question of the week. And we're asking you, as the ANC marks its 113th anniversary, the party has declared this year to be the year of decisive and visible action to revitalize the party. Now, the question is, in your opinion, can the party regain its former glory? Let us know at SABC News_TV. That's where we're at. Let's kick off our discussions. We've joined by a number of guests. In studio is Dr. Hlengiwe Ndlovu, Senior Lecturer at the Wits School of Governance. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have on our video wall Professor Sipho Siepe, Higher Education Strategy Consultant. We were hoping to be also joined by Dr. Snuki Zekelala, the President of the ANC's Veterans League. Hopefully he will join as the discussion progresses. It'll be good to get his take on matters. Also, our digital audience, good to have you on the program. Please raise your virtual hands. I'll do my very best, as always, to try and get you into the conversation. Dr. Ndlovu, maybe I'll start with you with regards to our umbrella question of the week. From what you've heard, the marching orders from the ANC president yesterday, are you confident? And time is ticking. The local government elections is fast approaching. Can the ANC get it right by then?
Well, good evening to you, Blaine, and good evening to your viewers at home. It's a multi-million-dollar question and a very important one because, I mean, the 2024 national elections were a rude awakening call for the ANC. And now that we've observed this decline, I think significantly from 2016 to 2021 local government elections until the national elections, and then moving forward to the 2026 local government elections, it's an important question to say, where is the ANC standing, and did they use this 113th birthday to reflect and also to get in touch with the people on the ground?
Right. Professor Siepe, $1 million question, as Dr. Ndlovu said. Does the ANC have the resources to turn things around?
Well, I think everything is possible, but what you do is to look at the history of the ANC where it lost. There's not been much evidence that once the ANC loses section of the people, it is able to draw back. One must remember there was a time when the ANC was in control of 9 provinces. It lost the city of Cape Town, and from there it lost the province. It has not been able to draw back. So what it means that the ANC must be able to tell people what it will do differently. But it's also important to understand that it is not so much promises that you make that will determine whether you'll do well. This country has had a number of promises that never came to see light of day. So it will be the actions and policy choices that the ANC makes that they will draw people into saying maybe we can bet our money on this horse. But so far, whenever the ANC loses, the graph seems to go down. And as Tebo indicated, that this decline has been long coming. And most importantly, what has been put as a solution by the ANC is not new. The suggestion that decisive action would be taken is not something new. The president of this country has said that many times. The notion of accountability is not new. It is something that the ANC has always talked about. Even some of the members of the ANC have questioned the kind of leadership that the ANC has. Actually, one of the members of the ANC, very senior and a veteran, once even said that the current Secretary General of the ANC is an embarrassment and went as far as to want to compare him with Sir Blackie. So that was a very strong summation and a condemnation that emerges from the ANC. So the issue of whether it can go back, it will be based on what actions it will take. But these actions must be demonstrable. It is not simply an issue of a commitment. There must be steps. And I'm glad that you have Dr. Zekelala there, who has also raised the issues with some of the people who have been implicated in state capture. They had actually said it would be important for the ANC to gain confidence that all those people who have been mentioned in a particular light by the Zonal Commission, and also other issues that have emerged that have to do with the absence of transparency, issues of corruption. The ANC must be seen to be acting. And if it fails to act, then it cannot draw back. Remember, people are not going to be persuaded by words. Words have been there, but ultimately, one must say, any election is a referendum on the leadership of organizations.
Let me bring in Dr. Zikalala. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. The ANC president yesterday was seemingly frank in terms of some of the reasons he put forward regarding the decline of the ANC, unemployment, the crisis of unemployment, the economy, poor service delivery. Now it's part of a vehicle called the Government of National Unity. I wonder, even if the ANC does good, and does make an impact on the ground, will the ordinary voter be able to see this as part of this group?
Yeah. Good evening, Jane Harman. Good evening to the viewers and good evening to members of the panel. Yeah, the president was correct. The president was very correct that the ANC is at its weakest currently, that the ANC has embarked on what you call the renewal program. That renewal program, what it means is to ensure that you bring in mass political education, especially amongst masses and also amongst members, so that people should know what the values of the ANC are, people should know what the principles of the organization they are, people should know that there is consequence management, people should know that indiscipline will not be tolerated, people should know that those who are found wanting and involved in malfeasance, there won't be any empathy for them. And of course, that the other things that we are also, all the time we tell our NEC members, please don't support people who are doing wrong things. And secondly, the ANC itself, it has embarked on a six-pronged program. Firstly, is that the question of renewing the ANC, as I said, is fixing local government elections. Fixing local government is a top priority, but you cannot do it with the cadres that are there, with cadres who some of them are emboldened in corruption, in kickbacks. We cannot do that. What it means is that you have to sift every member of the ANC to get credible, committed members of the ANC who will make sure that local governments function. And that's going to happen. So to make sure that the security of water and energy, we have to make sure, for instance, I wrote a piece saying that there's a municipality called Makanda. They've managed to sort out the reticulation problem, but now water is gushing out in that municipality, but they have not connected the clean water to communities, to businesses. They are short of engineers, they're short of plumbers, but we said as veterans, let them go and get those engineers and plumbers from a TVET college in their local municipality. Our people want nothing else but service delivery and quality service delivery. So and of course, if that happens, we'll be able to create jobs. And of course, the economy will grow as well. And so we as veterans are very optimistic that we are starting a new year. And of course, the induction course, as we call it, which is a base course of the African National Congress, has been adopted by the NEC. We'll make sure that every member goes through that induction course, goes through the basic political education of the organization. I was surprised, one member, who's the leading member of the ANC, said, well, he was in the mines, and he grew up, and he was organizing workers, and he never attended any political school. But he said he was happy that now there will be compulsory political education for all ANC members, irrespective of what position you're holding in the country.
No
and
doubt.
So we're very optimistic.
No doubt.
If you can look at the
Dr. Zikalala, sorry to interject, no doubt fixing local government is important. Fixing local government elections is another story altogether. But there's nothing new. This has been spoken about for many years now. What can the ANC do differently in the 31st year of democracy that it hasn't tried or hasn't done in the 30 years of democracy?
No. For instance, there have been no mass political education within the ANC. Let me make it very clear, since it took over. And so majority of the people who joined the ANC, they joined it for wrong reasons. And so those people will be weeded out in a sense that immediately if your membership expires, you must go through what you call political induction to understand what this organization is all about. This is a people's organization. Now you have individuals who are involved in malfeasance, who are involved in tenders, who are councillors, but they must be weeded out. That's what we are saying. And so with mass political education, like for instance, when you join the church, before you get baptized, before you get into the structures of the church, they take you through Bible studies to understand what the church is all about. which we ignored as the African National Congress. But we are saying now, not the NEC, now that the NEC has adopted the mass political education of all cadres of the movement, I think we'll see a positive change within the leadership. I think we'll see that there are leaders who feel that they're untouchable just because they've got money. That money should not buy votes. That individual must be committed to the values, the discipline, and the integrity and dignity of the organization. That is why we as veterans, when a member of the NEC has been found wanting, that member does not say, let me resign for now, let me step aside for now and clear myself, because the ANC is more important than myself. And no one has asked that member to go and steal on behalf of the ANC. The constitution of the ANC is very, very clear. And so you can say that there's nothing new, but we as veterans were saying there is something new. We are renewing, we are reviving, we are re-energizing the African National Congress, because we cannot afford to lose the 2026 elections. We cannot afford not losing, you cannot afford to have residents in municipalities not having water, residents in municipality not having toilets. We cannot afford that. And so we are looking at those things, and I'm saying that is going to happen. The president has endorsed it, the president spoke about it yesterday, and we are confident as veterans that that will be done.
Dr. Ndlovu, what would a loss at the local government elections mean for the ANC?
Well, at this point, I think the ANC should have learned the lessons, not only from home, but from the continent. That of course, now, they are part of the GNU, but they remain with significant numbers to form that part of the GNU. But if they're going to be losing the 2026 local government elections, it means even the idea of governance has significantly changed, because that would mean then we know that for now they've already lost some of the biggest metros, like in the Gauteng province. They've lost all the big metros where we started seeing this coalition, right? And then we're looking at what are they expecting to gain? How are they mobilizing, as my colleagues on the panel are talking about? How can the ANC think about its renewal project or program? But it will be a big loss, not only for the movement itself, but also, for millions of South Africans whom for years have identified with the ANC as a political party, who, of course, sometimes I don't agree with some of, the statements that there are people who join the movement without, reflecting or for good reasons. I think it has been that symbolic party that has carried people from the apartheid to where they are now. But we've seen, of course, the decline of the political party over the years. And it would mean if they are going to lose the 2026 government election, it might be the end of the political party. It might be the end, perhaps, of, the majority government as we've seen. But most importantly, there are people like the veterans within the ANC. There are older grandmothers at home and other people who have really sacrificed a lot to be not only part of the movement, but in terms of fighting for the freedom of this country, but they haven't really seen that freedom translating into tangible outcomes. And one of the issues is like, how is the ANC really reflecting, from the RDP as one of those policies to now that has not actually delivered? What are the promises? How have they changed from what they were in 1995 to where we are today?
That's an important point, Siepe. I wonder, is the ANC reaching an inflection point whereby the shine of this powerful liberation movement is somewhat fading and dulling in the memories of a lot of people? And I say a lot of people because a large chunk of South African population is youth. Or is that too of a powerful factor to ever fade away?
Well, the president took time to take South Africans through what you call history, the history of dispossession, to show how much has been sacrificed to get where we are. But what is also important is that people are not simply going to vote for you because you have this heroic struggle that you can recite. They are going to judge you on the basis of the actions that you take. I'll give you a simple example. Not so long ago, and also one must also accept the notion that says the current leadership of the ANC is weak. There's nothing that suggests that if these people are weak, as they acknowledge, these weak people are suddenly going to overnight change to be able to undo and change their behavior. A good example is something that we cannot ignore is the Pala matter. When the independent parliamentary panel was put, it came up with some findings that were very damning that involves the president. And the ANC decided to vote against any suggestion of moving forward with what the panel said. All sorts of explanations were given. But then Thabo Mbeki raised the issue that if the president is as innocent as he says, what are you guys in parliament saying? Are you saying these are his words, not mine? Are you saying there is something that the president could actually be wrong and therefore needs to be protected? Those are the words that he raised. And one of the members, who's a veteran of the ANC, Nkosazana Zuma, stood up and said, as a disciplined member of the ANC, I think this must be tested, and the president, if he's innocent, he'll come out innocent. So those are the dynamics. And people are watching this. And when people watch this, they are simply saying, where is the notion of accountability? Where is transparency? Where is the notion of walk the path? And when they also see that some of the people who were implicated in the Zondo Commission, the president of the ANC said, we are going to make sure that we implement all these recommendations. Yeah. And people are raising those questions. So yes, you can make promises, but promises are not good enough. It will be, the ANC will be judged by what it says, not by what it says, but the actions it takes and policy directions it has taken. And the people, let's not insult our people, and the ANC must get it from the people. When the people say, when you move from 57% of the share of the vote to 40%, that's the strongest condemnation and damnation of any party. Yes, we hear these promises, but like you say, then there's nothing new in them. You go back to the ANC, one thing it's good about, it's able to articulate its own weaknesses. But unfortunately, there's not been much progress in addressing those. There's no party that can tell you about its own failures better than the ANC. It's able to tell you, it's able to find that, but it is moving from there to making sure that you behave differently so that you can inspire. And you can talk about the branches being weak, but ultimately it's the leadership that must inspire people, young people, to say why I want to join the ANC. One last point. When Mandela gave his speech at the Rivonia trial, he talked about the heroes of the past. And he said, listening to this, I wish life could be so kind that I could be that part of struggle. This is what the people, the ANC must be able to give to young people who want to join the ANC, to be inspired. And then you will have the branches.
I wonder, Dr. Zegelala, how the ANC would offer this inspiration to the electorate. Unless the ANC renews itself, it will perish. That was the sentiment echoed by your party president, Cyril Ramaphosa. How do you think this renewal will practically manifest itself this year? I say this year because you're fast running out of time to change things before the local government elections.
No. I think Professor Spearpay is correct. It's correct that we are good at analyzing, good at finding the problem, good at saying this is what is to be done. But we are very, very bad at implementation. Very bad at implementation. That is why we are there as veterans. Because as veterans, we did say that all those who are implicated in the Zondo Commission must not go to Parliament. And unfortunately, they are there. And we are having a number of meetings with the Secretary General of the ANC, and he agrees with us. But it's a question of implementation. You see, because people will not vote for a party that has people, individuals, who are found wanting, especially in terms of the Zondo Commission. People don't do that. We did warn our ANC that unless we deal with these individuals, people will lose confidence in us. Because even in church itself, I want to make it, in church itself, if a person has been known to be a womanizer, I'm sorry to say that. If you have known to have abused his or her powers, the church itself, they call him and say, step aside, let us clear your case. And so we are really serious about this as veterans. We are saying that we won't be able to gain public confidence as long as we have those individuals who are implicated in state capture and who they must face disciplinary action. And we are resolute on that. And the president agrees with that, with us, the SG agrees with us, but it's a question of implementation. But we're not going to tire as veterans. We are not going to tire. We'll make sure that those individuals face the full might of the law. Secondly, we are disappointed with the National Prosecuting Authority. We're not supposed to criticize government structures because they've been moving very slow on state capture. The evidence is there, but they have not yet prosecuted. We want the leaders of state capture to be prosecuted. They've got the evidence, but what makes them not to prosecute, we don't know. As you know, our constitution does not allow our president to interfere with the prosecutorial matters. Does not allow him. But we are saying that the law enforcement agencies must definitely act, and the ANC itself must act. I'm not saying that we're not part of the ANC. We sit there. We have bi-monthly meetings with the SG. The SG agrees with us, but I don't know what makes him not to say, so and so, can you step down until you've been taken to a DC.
Let's get the general public sentiment, whether you're convinced or not. Mbasa, let's hear from you first.
Okay, thank you, Blaine. Well, first, just to touch on what Prof. Siepe spoke about regarding the Phala matter. I just want to check with Dr. Zikalala whether how will this renewal project really become a reality when the person who's at the helm of the ANC is one who used the majority of their vote in Parliament to block an investigation into alleged corruption at his own farm? And then just secondly, regarding the youth and how the ANC could perhaps enthuse the youth back into the party, I just want to speak about an Afrobarometer survey which indicated that young people are more concerned about social and economic development and less concerned about the right to vote, political rights, and other civil rights. The primary concern of young people is a government that can translate a manifesto into measurable outcomes. So in terms of the government's failure to implement, how then do they hope to enthuse the youth before, for instance, next year's elections or the 29 election?
Dr. Zigala?
Yeah, well, in terms of Phala, the president of the country and the president of the ANC made it very clear that if the SIU comes to him and say, not as a president now, Mr. Ramaphosa, you are implicated in Phala, we are laying charges, he said he'll step down. That's what he said. The Integrity Commission, we received the report of the Integrity Commission for the first time after almost 12 months, and the Integrity Commission cleared the president because it made it very clear, the Integrity Commission, they did not find evidence that the president knew about the money that was there at Phala because he is not running Phala. And so we are saying that the law enforcement agencies must just act. They must act independently. And the president, the Constitution does not allow the president to interfere with law enforcement agency. Secondly, on the youth itself, we're having discussions with the ANC Youth League. We are saying that the renewal must also start with these young people. Currently, the ANC Youth League leaguers, they won a number of seats in universities. We are saying that that leadership that is there, leadership that needs mass political education, and that leads induction. And what you're afraid of is that if you don't do that, they'll be sucked into what you call a honeypot. You know what Brett Cable did? He gave these young people lots of money. And so they thought that being a member of the Youth League, you must wear a techie of 20,000 rands, you must be able to party the whole night. Those are not the values of the African National Congress. And so we are saying that we start with the youth itself. And then, of course, we go to women who are majority in the country. And then, of course, the branches. What's supposed to happen now is that all branches must have what you call a political education where they train the trainers, so that people who are staying in those areas must be able to train their own people. And we are saying very clearly that all NEC members must belong to branches. They must go back to their branches.
Right.
So they can't just become NEC members without belonging to branches and without going to being members of the branches. And where I live, I'm a member of the branch. And where I live, it's a regional the ward secretary who assigns me. He says to me, Comrade Ziganala, we are going to do blitz there. I'm not saying to you're a junior to me. No. I go and do blitz. I'm going to do what campaign. I'm not saying that I'm an NEC member. No. We are saying that we want to turn this ship around. It is moving very slowly. We know that people are impatient.
Yes.
And we are saying that we are going to turn it around. We are confident of that.
Let's hear from a youth. Utando, are you convinced? Before I go to Professor Siepe.
Thank you for the opportunity, Blaine, and good evening, everyone. Speaking on this whole situation, I do want to say it's great that Ramaphosa, and it was mentioned now, realizes that ANC needs a serious revamp and to go back to the recipe book that made them a success in the first place. This is the vision I had when I spoke on this last February before the elections. ANC cannot afford to lose more support because supporters and officials of other parties don't just appear. They are people who had a political home and searched for greener pastures. So as long as the officials of the ANC stick to the mission of the party, then they won't lose supporters passionate about helping those missions happen. Also, if the ANC doesn't pick back up again, that GNU will quickly turn into a handover to the DA, which we've seen being serious from day one about the different things that they want to do for the country. So if the DA fights hard enough and keeps their momentum, these remaining years until the next national election will be their internship program, preparing them for a permanent position as the ruling party of South Africa. Even Helen Zille said that the GNU as a coalition government is between the DA and ANC, ignoring the other 8 parties. So overall, Ramaphosa shouldn't be an absent father to the nation anymore, but needs to be more visible, hands-on, forging his own reputation for the ANC instead of leaning on the successes of the past, like Oliver Tambo, Mandela, or even our new favorite girl, Dintswalo.
Point taken, Utando. Professor Siepe?
Yeah, I want to respond to the point raised by Dr. Sigalano. It's correct, and it should be something that must be encouraged, that the party can deal with its own issues internally. But you're not judged by what your integrity commission or committee says. You are judged by how people perceive. And this point was raised sharply by, first it was the DA before the somersault that happened after it became part of the GNU, where the DA said, based on the report by Parliament, they are going to approach the FBI to investigate allegations of possible money laundering. They also wanted to check whether the money that came was as a result of some legitimate processes. So they raised that issue. And if you listen to the Judge Rogers, who was listening to this at the Constitutional Court, he made certain statements that says there are a few things that are not in dispute. One is that an amount to the tune of $580,000 was not put in a safe or the bank. He also says, we know that the case has not been opened, or it is not, or people have not been convicted, even though some people were arrested. And he says we cannot ignore the results or the findings of the panel. So he was very strong about that. And when people look at that, it doesn't matter what the Integrity Committee says. Ultimately, what matters is the ANC in the eyes of the people must be seen to be walking the talk. Simply internally, we do not know what happens there. So that is it. But one must accept, yes, the issue of that the law enforcement agencies must be able to do their work. But as we know that this matter is still up for grabs, but for as long as it is not resolved, where people can say all are equal before the law, the ANC runs the risk of being undermined at the polls by the people. But the ANC can lie to itself But what the people have actually said, you can make promises, but we are not going to take your word for it.
Right.
It will be based on the actions and the policy decisions that you make.
Dr.
And
Ndlovu,
also the notion of failure
right.
to deliver is nothing new. The DA has been very clear telling the ANC that the way we govern, we do it better than the ANC. That was always the slogan. The ANC should have woken up to that much earlier when the ANC lost the municipality or the metro of Cape Town.
Right. Dr. Ndlovu, just before I bring you in, I just want to play a clip for our viewer. Maybe it's a nice segue from what Professor Siepe says about, he mentions the GNU and the DA's performance, etc. And this is what the party president, Cyril Ramaphosa, had to say about the issue of selling out. Take a look.
The idea that a progressive party cannot engage its opponents in short-term tactical agreements without selling out is a lie and is ahistorical. Our own experience, as well as the experiences of many revolutionary movements, show that there are moments where conditions require that you work with your opponents to secure space for the revolution to regain momentum. And that is precisely what we have done.
Dr. Ndlovu, do you think the president of the ANC articulated the reasons for bringing in parties like the DA into the GNU, partnering with them? Did he convincingly articulate it to the electorate?
Well, I think we did hear, a lot of concerns just after the formation, or even before the formation of the GNU, after the results were announced. The concerns from the citizens of this country, especially the voters, around the coalition, but also the GNU. So initially, the conversation was about the coalition, and then it became the GNU, and then anything and everything in between. So those contestations, they were very outright to say that was a very critical moment, but also a very difficult moment for decision-making, particularly for the ANC, in terms of a whole lot of issues that have been raised within the political space around the ideological differences between the political parties who have come to form the coalition government, but also what has been raised by one of the colleagues from online to say if the ANC is not strategic enough, they are going to be preparing the DA into, taking over the country. And we know some of these conversations have happened in the public space, how people feel about the DA taking over, and how this echoes some of the apartheid memories simply because of the racial issue and all of these things. But him articulating that, I think we've seen also those tensions, not only within the ANC, but also with the Tripartite Alliance, in terms of them, are raising different issues and different concerns. We've seen how the different structures or different provinces, the leadership from the Gauteng province, how they handled the issue of the GNU and all of that. And the question is, was he being genuine in terms of that will help the party to regain the momentum? And I think some of the questions around that, we've been grappling with them before you played that clip to say, what will be the renewal program and what does it mean? And I think from where the ANC is standing right now, it's quite difficult to tell whether the GNU will allow the political party to re-strategize and regain momentum, and because of several reasons that we've already raised here. But one of the most important thing is that the failure to listen to the people. And sometimes when we come here, to have these conversations, we're not just coming as people who are here to butcher the ANC and all of that, but sometimes we're informed by the research that we do within the communities and all of that, and listening to what people are saying. And it is important to then say how far has the ANC really reflected on what people have been saying and what people are saying, especially for people who have, taken a step back, who have chosen not to go and vote and not to join other political parties, who have waited for the moment for the renewal of the ANC. So I listened this weekend different speakers coming on the podium to speak, and I was wondering, does the ANC now has an identity of its own without comparing it to other political parties or other political happenings? Do they have a moment of rethinking who they are and going back, to their roots, the reasons why they formed the political party and all of that, without blaming other emerging parties, without comparing them to other governments and all of that? I didn't hear that. Every person who came to the podium, they spoke about people leaving, joining other political parties, and people and forming other political parties and all of those things. So for me, the biggest question was like, for a person who's sitting at home, who's waiting for service delivery, who's waiting for the ANC to actually renew itself, and then they come back to vote for it, to support it, what are we taking home to them? And I didn't find that.
Dr. Zikalala, I just wonder how loud the unhappiness from within the ANC about the GNU is currently. Do you expect the issue of quote-unquote selling out will be strongly raised at the upcoming NGC? Doc, I think you are mute. It seems that we're having a bit of an issue. Let's try to fix up your line, Dr. Zikalala. We're battling to hear you. In the meantime, let's take our digital audience. Letitia, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Blaine, and good evening to everyone. Can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So the panel has discussed a lot of issues, but I had a question which speaks to one of the strategies that the ANC has, and I would like to address that question to Dr. Zikalala. So you spoke about this mass political education that is needed for the ANC. So I just want to ask, in terms of the effectiveness of this education, what measures have been put in place to ensure that this education yields the results that we need? And you spoke about how a pastor, somebody should be baptized before they become a pastor. So how do we ensure that this mass education will ensure that there's no corruption and other crimes within the ANC?
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's hear from Ruth and then Tendai before we get a response from Dr. Zikalala.
Thank you. I'll just try to make my points quickly. I assume I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me once again. In terms of bringing the youth electorate, hopefully, to vote for the ANC, we need to understand that while political education and discussions with the youth elite are important, we need to move beyond the behind closed doors discussions and bring a radical representative shift to the public to understand what exactly is the ANC's plan in terms of bringing in the youth electorate. And that could mean something as having youth in key positions beyond relegating them to youth leagues. That could be a ministerial position. We've seen it in Botswana, we've seen it in Namibia. So we need to move beyond the discussions and have tangible actions that showcase that youth are actually included not just in positions, but also in policies. Second, in terms of how the ANC communicated their 6 key priorities at the January 8th statement, the thing that was missing was convincing people, particularly for the 2026 and 2029 elections, that why exactly are these key priority areas done through the ANC better than through the GNU? Because, for example, the issue of unemployment that was raised in the key priority area can be sorted or solved through the GNU. So why particularly is the ANC needed to lead this intervention and to implement it? And it's very key to answer this question for the next election, such as the local government.
Thank you so much. Tendai, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, sir. Then we're going to give the last word to Dr. Zikalala.
Thank you. I would like to say that I do think that the veterans perhaps are too ambitious on the issue of renewal of the ANC. Why I'm saying so is that the ANC has 3 decades of record of corruption, of misgovernance and other things, its members. So if you are to look at it, I think the renewal starts from within. Within, it means I don't expect that the current crop of leaders of ANC are capable of renewal. I think that has been shown with the splits from the ANC. Various political formations have been formed, which many of these political formations are outsmarting the ANC politically. We've seen it in the past election, and I cannot delve into the results, but they show itself how ANC is being outsmarted politically.
All right, Tinda, thank you. Dr. Zikalala, your response?
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I do agree with what Comrade Siposiapa was saying, that once you lose power, you'll never regain it. When you got 40%, we said to ourselves, should you go to opposition benches? We look at Western Cape, we never came back, and we're still our numbers are dwindling in the Western Cape. And then we said, let's form a coalition or a government of national unity with parties that subscribe to our constitutional values, with parties that believe in the rule of law, with parties that believe in clean governance. That is why we brought all the 10 parties. And we, as the African National Congress, are aware that even the last elections were lost because of lack of service delivery. And so there is a team that is working with the Deputy Minister of the ANC that is looking at all these 67 dysfunctional municipalities to say, how do we fix them? How do we make sure that people get clean water? How do you make sure that people do not use pit latrines? How do people should not use bucket system? I was shocked that in Mangaung, the people are still using a bucket system. It's unacceptable. Yeah. And thirdly, in Mangaung, we had that they've got vacancies of 70 engineers. How do you do that as a municipality, having so many vacancies? And so what we are saying is that we're definitely going to make sure that we deliver. Right. Councillors and members of the MMCs who do not deliver, they must be taken to task. That is why we want to conscientize our people, especially at branch level, because that's where the ANC is. If branches are weak, if branches are not credible, if branches are used for elections, then you don't have an organization. That is why the president said the branches are the weakest link.
Dr. Zikalala, we'll have to leave it there. We're fast running out of time, but thank you so much indeed for taking the time to explain. Also, Professor Sipo Siepe, appreciate your time, sir. Dr. Ndlovu, as always, value added. Digital audience, good to have you on the program. Thank you so much indeed. All right. Before we go, gotta go. Its time is running out. But before we go, here's my take. Politics. Look, one of the definitions, activities aimed at improving someone's status. That's one. The other is the art or science concerned with guiding or influencing governmental policies. But for me, the pertinent question is, how do you use politics as a force for good? And it cuts through all political parties, not only the ANC. It is in the answering of this question that gets us as a society to that better place. The correct answer mitigates fringe fears, the us and them, the zero-sum game. It focuses us on what really matters, the immediate needs of the people. You know the refrain by now, put the people first. And that's my take. If you miss anything on this program, then be sure to watch this episode of Topical on YouTube. Trends Travel up next. If you're watching a repeat of this program, then as always, the news continues. Until next week, my brothers and sisters, take care. Bye-bye.